This is Whiskey Whereabouts. I'm Tim, and it's week 2 of Malt Madness. We've got a new group of 5 whiskeys. I'm going to blind taste. It's a pretty impressive group this week. We've got 24-year-old single cask Glen Elgin. It's the #1 seed in the tournament. We've got 34-year-old whiskey in this flight. Who will move on? Let's find out. My whiskey journey has taken me to Scotland and back. I've explored whiskey education, tastings, and distilleries from Islay to Speyside. And now my journey continues here, with you, on Whiskey Whereabouts. So if you're not caught up, this is week 2 of 5. We're having our Malt Madness tournament, 25 whiskeys, 5 tasting flights, 1 winner from each will face off in the final to declare 1 winner. And so if you're not familiar with any of this concept or how this all came to be, check out my video from last week, the first group. I'll put a link to it right up here for you. And here we are with the second group, which has a mascot designation of the Red Deer group. This flight has the highest and lowest seeded whiskeys in the tournament, starting with the lowest, Tamdhu 15-year, but this is single cask, 48.4%. This comes from the old particular line that Douglas Laing. Tamdhu matures their whiskey in sherry casks, and this sample is going to give us an opportunity to find out what if they didn't. This was aged in a single refill hogshead. Next up, we have the 24 seed, Craigellachie 17. It's 46%. It's not chill filtered, no color added, matured in American oak. Moving on to the 23 seed, Dumbarton, 21-year. This is single grain whiskey distilled in 2000, and it's bottled at 51.5%. This is again another Douglas Laing old particular bottling, and this was matured in a single hogshead cask. Dumbarton is a closed distillery. They closed in 2002, but it previously made whiskey that primarily went into the blend Ballantines. Next, we have another well-aged single-grain whiskey. This is the 2 seed in the tournament. It's a 34-year-old Strathclyde single grain, 47.2%. This was bottled by Murray McDavid. It was 30 years aged in bourbon casks, the rest in rye whiskey casks from Koval Distillery. If you don't know them, this is a pretty recently established distillery in Chicago. This whiskey was distilled in 1987. And coming in with the number 1 seed, the 24-year Glen Elgin. It's single cask, matured in a bourbon hogshead, and bottled at 54% ABV. This comes via the Glenmore Rare Fine line. This whiskey was distilled in 1998. Glen Elgin primarily goes into the White Horse blend, but they do have 1 official bottling. It is a 12-year. So the 5 competitors in the Red Deer group have taken the court. They've been poured, they have had time to breathe, and they have been placed in a random order. So I'm going to start on this side, work my way through the flight, beginning with whiskey number 1. And yeah, this is, we have a pretty exotic flight here. Some really rare stuff. And we have 1 whiskey that is sort of a standard bottling. And if you know that whiskey, it has a distinctive quality. And this whiskey that I'm nosing has a real sort of meatiness to it, and some sweetness, some very nice sort of chocolate sweet. There's a sort of a leathery kind of element to it, maybe a berry fruit. It's a nice nose, and with some different flavor components at work. Pretty balanced. So going in on the palate, yeah, this is a nice whiskey. It is a very nice mouthfeel, and it is sweet. Sweeter elements are dominating in the palate. Honey sweet. After that sort of honey arrival, it's sort of bringing in some of the bitter sort of elements, a little cask element. Then you go to the finish, and it turns itself inside out almost, and you're getting that more leathery kind of almost really rich, and the sort of real oaky sort of quality to number 2 on the nose. It's very butterscotch sweet and fruit, tropical fruit. It's very nice. Little nutty, a little bit of floral. It's pretty fresh, pretty sweet, pretty inviting. So going in on the palate now. Yeah, this one has a whole progression. It has that honey sort of sweet. Then it kind of develops into chocolate. And then all on the palate, it's developing into a vanilla is a dominant sort of sweetness with it. It has a really nice mouthfeel. Again, I don't know where I am in this flight yet, sort of relative to each other, but we don't have any weak whiskeys here. We don't have any 40%. We've got some nice, rich sort of mouthfeel so far. This whiskey really doesn't present very hot. There's a little bit, just a little bit of sort of lively pepper on the palate, but it's subtle. I would say a medium finish that's leaving behind, the sweetness is dominant, but there is this floral potpourri type sort of element, and a really nice, very mild sort of heat that really never even makes it past your tongue. It really, you don't feel anything with it, but it just gives it a nice sort of heat. So we march on to whiskey number 3. Very nice nose. Little subtle. This one's a little bit more sedate, but it's rich at the bottom. Banana, toffee, it's fruity, honey. There's a vegetal element or a grassy element, garden element. Is that a little nut maybe? And a vanilla. It's not too delicate. There's something, there's that sort of nuttiness or something. There's something more savory, a little bit heartier down at the, sort of in the depths of the nose here. Yeah, nice nose. Nice nose on this whiskey. I mean, this is, we're doing well here, here in the Red Deer group. And we're going to see on the palate now for whiskey number 3. Wow. Okay, so. Yeah. Long finish and just a cascade of waves. 3 big waves before it recedes. This is a rich whiskey. This is not 40% whiskey. This is not, it doesn't feel hot. Like, brace yourself. Oh, it's hot going down. Again, all the heat is on the tongue. It's all sort of deployed into the taste of the whiskey. The palate is very much saltier, caramel, sweet. It is not complicated. It's incredibly rich. So it's really nice. There's not a lot of variety on the palate, although what is on the palate is delicious. And when we get to the finish, it, like I said, it kind of has these sort of waves. It's that same through line from the palate, but it's bringing in all this sort of other. So the palate's like a solo, and then we've got the finish, and they're bringing in the rest of the sort of orchestra. And so you're getting the oak, you're getting the bitter from the tannin, you're getting, yeah, almost a floral. You're getting the heat, mostly on the tongue, lively sort of peppery heat, and it does rise. You do get a little bit up in the sinus. You kind of feel that as that wave kind of recedes, if you know what I mean. And you do have that somewhat fruity, but rich and dark, sweet, more than that sort of caramel sweet coming in. So it's a big finish. It does have a little bit of heat to it. If I had a bottle of this, I would be very interested in playing around with the water and seeing what it does. As it is, we're tasting neat for keeping everything equal here, but a very satisfying whiskey, a very strong whiskey. We are off to a really competitive start here. Okay, moving on. Whiskey number 4. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah, it's nail polish remover. I mean, it is solventy. Yeah, that just hits you in the face. I'm kind of acclimating to it. The whiskeys have plenty of time to breathe. I need to acclimate to this so I can kind of find what else is under there. Brassy. A little hot, but with time, I'm starting to pick up some flavor notes. It's sweet but subtle. It's a little bakey, sugar cookie, shortbread, cherry vanilla. This one really presents very sharp and a little unbalanced. There's not a lot of contrasting sort of notes to sort of balance out. And again, that real solventy note is pretty sharp. Let's see on the palate. Mouth feels a little watery, and I'm getting a real, like I said, the bake tray, cookie dough. You know, a lot of that type of sort of baked sweet, not really vanilla chocolate sweet, but it's all kind of awash in this almost salt water. There's not a lot more in the palate. The finish is a little disappointing. The finish is pretty hot and pretty basic. Not a lot of depth. It's very bourbony. Yeah, that char plus vanilla with maybe a little, maybe cherry sweet. It is the weakest that we've had in the flight so far. Here we go on whiskey number 5. Yeah, we're back in the sort of nail polish kind of corner of the store here. This one's a little bit more pleasant. It's more perfumey, less solventy, but it's sharp. And again, I need to acclimate to it. I need a second to find the flavors underneath. It's pretty fruity. Berry fruit, cherry fruit. It's hard to find a lot more in the nose. It really is. It's pretty one-dimensional. If I really lean in, I feel like I can get some of the cask. I can get a little oak. I can get a little ghost of maybe a vanilla-y honey type of element. Let's see if the palate gives us any more dimension. I was going to say, it drinks like nothing. Like, it does not have heat. The finish seems short to medium and seems to dissipate, and then it kind of comes back, and it's got a little heat to it, a little kick to it. So the only whatever the ABV here is, it's really invisible until that sort of second wave on the finish. But on the palate, very similar to this whiskey. So it has that saltiness, but this time it's a little bit more integrated. It's a little bit more, instead of like salt water splashed on the flavor elements, now they're kind of blending together, and so you're getting more of a salty, caramelly sweet. It's not very complicated. I do like that finish. There just isn't that much more to fish out of the palate, but the finish just keeps going. It has this sort of vanilla kind of element with that salty element. So I'm going to take a moment to deliberate, kind of revisit. I will come back with the results. Okay, so the judges, me, have deliberated, and I'm ready to reveal my rankings. And I will say, before I get started, that this was very close. It was a pretty competitive group. So let us begin. I'm gonna arrange them from lowest to highest from this side, and should not be much of a surprise. This whiskey number 4 is gonna be the lowest ranked whiskey. Then we are gonna move up to whiskey number 5 as the second whiskey. I'm going to place whiskey number 1 in third position. And again, very competitive. But I'm going to place the second whiskey in position number 4, and this whiskey number 3 is the winner. So we have a winner, and it's Glen Elgin. Moving on from the Red Deer group. If you enjoyed this, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next 3 groups coming. We'll see how Glen Elgin fares in the tournament. You can just press this big button that's going to pop up right over here, and I will see you on the next one.